Sleeping.
Hey everyone, Andy Hall, Dr. Kennard here with Tobin Templeman. And Dr. Tomfoolery, I believe you may have one up to me in the carnotology department here because you're the chair, apparently, of the department now. So does that mean that you rank me?
Canardology is the study of the canard.
Yes. Well, all right. I will not take this as an affront in any way due to the honor of the Kennards.
So he doesn't outrank you. He's just like he's just very educated on the Dr. Kennard.
Right.
Right.
Okay, I can deal with that. I can deal with that. Wow. So So what have you guys been up to? I've just been.
One of the things is I got pictures like you had been asking for. They just got to get put onto my computer.
Oh, dude, that's great. So these are the pictures of the house that you've been basically building.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And
and it shows from the front to the back on the inside where I'm at on the interior.
Cool. You'll have to now. Where are you in the process?
Right now, I am pulling the last wires that I wanted inside the kitchen. I had some questions before I started doing that, and those have been answered. So I got those pulled through, and man, I'm close to being able to put the cabinets up. I have the cabinets built, and then I get to build the face frame, which everybody sees. You see the face frame. You don't really see the inner workings of the cabinet usually. What's up, Sammy?
Return of the Hood.
Shamala Hamala.
Shamala Hamala. So you're going to be putting up the cupboards pretty soon, and it seems like you got the wiring under control.
Yeah, I did that yesterday. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. A buddy of mine rewired his house a couple of years ago. And what he did was that he ran the wire himself. He doesn't have an electrician license, but a buddy of his who is an electrician came in to check off on all the work to basically certify everything to make sure it was up to code. And it worked out. It saved him a ton of money. D Parks is asking me. You tagged me in a post a while back on Instagram. Did I ever see that? That's a good question, D Parks. That's a very good question. Did I see that tag? Maybe I did. Maybe I I'm always going to say that my default position is that if maybe perhaps incompetency on my part, is that a defense? That might be a defense. I don't know, but I'll check it out after.
No,
after the
that
show.
actually specifically qualifies as an excuse.
That sounds like bullshit to me too, Sammy.
I used to have that argument with my dad all the time as a kid. Was my reasons were to him excuses, and I couldn't understand where the line was.
Right. Well, I imagine if you're in a philosophy class, right? If you're going to deconstruct the argument there, bring it, put it into its mathematical formula, then after the equal sign to some of these excuses, it would just be equals to bullshit, maybe, perhaps, or just trying to dog the work. Maybe that's what his point was. Maybe.
I wonder what the mathematical symbol for bullshit is.
That's a very good question. Yeah, I never took a class in what is it called? Logical positivism. It was like Bertrand Russell's thing. back then about how you just break down sentences or assertions and arguments into mathematics, and then if it doesn't add up, it doesn't add up. And I'm sure that's a gross simplification, emphasis on the gross part of logical positivism right there.
Yeah, there's some not aspects of maths, but some things that maths or mathematics or math, don't know which one I'm supposed to use, seem to define that I just don't understand how it can even define such a thing. Like Richard Carrier has this this mathematical algorithm that he Bayes' theorem
Yeah.
that he uses to disprove
Jesus existing.
Yes.
Yes.
How do you disprove Jesus with math?
Well, one of the thought experiments that Dr. Tom Fuller, are you acquainted with this?
Bayesian logic doesn't disprove anything. It just assigns probabilities stuff in Carrier's analysis. His generous estimates for the various inputs put the historical existence of Jesus at like 33% that he existed, with his generous estimates for the inputs, and his not as generous estimates is like 1 in a couple thousand or something probability.
I guess where I struggle to understand how it works is I know that there are some facts that we have and historical data or whatnot, but isn't it essentially where does he ground it? Where's
the proof?
It's like saying, what are the chances of me existing? You can't calculate it because the variables, as soon as you go back,
it's an estimate.
Actually, there's a really good video that was done by Tang not that long ago, and they had atheist cats. I'm unsure of the guy's name who did this video, but he went through and he showed how he's a history teacher, and he was showing the process in which he would go through to be like, okay, this is a fact of history, and he was doing it with Robin Hood, and it was really interesting because he showed how you could get to where you could say that Robin Hood of Locksley was a real person, and but yeah, it's just by taking information like historical things and then artifacts and stuff like that, and the more you have of it, of a said person, the more you could be like, this is a real person.
The classic example, I believe, that a lot of people use is Nero, the Roman emperor. Nero real in comparison to Jesus Christ. And let's look at the different pieces of evidence that we have of written accounts, third-person accounts, people who aren't really invested in the concept of Nero being like people in other countries, non-Roman states, saying that Nero was real. When you compare the wealth of evidence and the quality of evidence that Nero existed versus the evidence for Jesus existing, what, Josephus, that propagandist? Yeah, I know I'm throwing down on this. But, and then you have, quote unquote, the Gospels not being written for decades afterwards. And then,
and the Gospel being written by motivated authors with an agenda.
So that's how basically, like for Sammy, right? Sammy, we have like government documents of you existing. You have a birth record. You probably have like something akin to a social security number, for example. Like here in the States, every citizen has like a social security number. There are these kind of evidence. There's this kind of evidence that's out there, which is at a higher quality than this dude from that time whose second brother's
and I
cousin.
guess that's the answer, is that it has to be compared to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's only this probability compared to the
Yes.
probability that Nero existed.
Well,
And
there's
that's where
no.
I think I was missing
Yeah.
how it was
Right.
grounded. Yeah.
In these kind of arguments, a lot of it, a lot of problems can be solved by qualifying your terms at the very beginning of the discussion, right? So, what do we mean by existing? Sure, there's a chance that we're all in the matrix right now. Or you're just figments of my crazy imagination. But in all reality, what does exist mean? Then once we cover that,
And with the historicity of Jesus, like, what is a historical Jesus? Is it the person literally described in the Gospels? That person didn't exist.
Yeah.
Is it someone that inspired that? Maybe, but what was he?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
See, we mentioned the Tang Channel just like that. Just like that.
What's up, Oz? Good morning.
Yeah. We were just talking about Bayes' theorem. And actually, we went from wiring a house, to Bayes' theorem, to Nero, and how can you tell if you exist or not?
I've been really interested about getting that Christus app. That's what y'all were talking about, right? Richard Carrier's app and how it calculates out the arguments.
Christus is a Godless Engineers app. John Gleason.
Oh, I thought they worked on it together. I thought it was like
John did the app, but he consulted with other people like Carrier and such to put information into it.
Yeah, Jim Hall is as well. He's done their Richard Carrier's critical thinking, and he's been putting out content based on that interaction, which has been pretty cool.
Yeah. See, I haven't even mentioned about my beef with Richard Carrier. See, so that's personal growth. That's personal growth right there. Yeah. I can't talk about it. I'm going to get sued I'm going to get a slap lawsuit or something like that. So I can't say anything about it. That's the benefit of doing this kind of gig. This is the benefit of doing this kind of gig on the blog for like 10 years, is that you establish a certain list of people. It's like, oh, I have thoughts about that person within the community. I'm not going to say anything about that right in this space, but yeah, you start figuring things. Yeah, I have thoughts.
Oh yeah. Well, Andy does not endorse this comment.
But I not endorse. Dr. Kennard does not.
He is a whiny little bitch.
Wow, that's tough. That's tough.
What's up, John?
I actually said this to Richard Carrier on someone's stream. I got to be on an after show and I got to speak to him, and somehow within 2 minutes, it was all gutter talk, sex talk, and whatnot. With Richard Carrier, it was quite surreal, actually. But
don't get me going, Sammy. Don't get me something going on that.
I did get to say to him that I don't really, I don't agree greatly with his theory and his ideas about the historicity of Jesus and whatnot. But I did have to thank him because he was one of the very first people I found on YouTube that got me in the right direction for waking up.
Yeah.
So I do have that to thank him for.
Sure.
But that's about it.
How you doing, John Hudson? How's kindergarten treating you?
Oh, man. This is...
Your eyes are bleeding. I can see it through. I can see it.
I drew a picture of Einstein. It's just to help him get set into it. I mean, virtual kindergarten for 5-year-old, and I'm picking up some computer skills. So I never Zoom meeting or anything, and this is my internet, YouTube, and some Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually learning something, and I'm going to continue with it for the first couple of weeks, and until he gets into the program of the school. Teacher's cool. She's a retired old hippie lady from Austin.
Nice.
She came out of retirement because of the school shortage with virtual learning.
Yeah.
And she gave up her tie-dye business for a little bit to do this with the kids, and
That's
it's pretty
great.
fucking cool, man.
You're giving up the tie-dye business. I think this is more of a question Oz has for you, Sammy, because, believe it or not, Sammy and I are looking at Gary from two different views. Is that I appreciate his work, period. That's all I'm going to say about it. But Sammy, what issues you have with Gary with?
Well, as I said before, the whole that he bases a large part of his thesis on this on basing what is it?
It's Bayes'
Whose
theorem.
theorem?
Bayes.
Bayes' theorem. Which I don't know. I need to look. I understand Bayes' theorem, but not how. I still can't get my head around how it works in this.
Yeah, maybe it's just there's a lot of and I've said this before on the channel and other people's shows that when you encounter a new idea or a new art form, give yourself a couple of passes at it. Try to. That's what I try to do is try to stay agnostic about something new until I get enough passes at it. But yeah, and maybe you just need a couple of passes. I don't know.
I definitely do. It's one of those things where there's just some crucial part that I'm not getting, that when I do, I'm going to go, I understand what how he's getting to this conclusion.
So and tell me if I'm wrong in the chat here. It Bayes' theorem strikes me as something similar to the Drake equation, right? The Drake equation is basically the equation that helps you try to figure out whether or not there's intelligent life in the universe, right? And so there's a certain number of stars in the universe. There's a certain number of planets in the universe. There's a certain amount of planets within the habitable zone. And then towards the end of the equation, there's the whether or not the intelligent life commits collective suicide.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because that actually helps me to articulate my issue a bit more. How does he know what variables?
Yes. Well, the thing is,
Like,
the variables are
This conversation's above my pay grade. I'm going to slip out.
All right, Dave. Take care, brother.
Later, John.
Right.
Well, that's the thing about take care. See, that's the thing about the Drake equation, is that over time we learn more things because it's because it's space, and we're learning more about the evolution of life. What are we going to say, Dr. Tom Foolery?
Using Bayes' theorem in this context is basically just a framework that can be built up over time of adding more into how you view the overall historicity in this context. So it's not like a firm, this is exactly how you do it. It's just like, this is a framework of you put stuff onto it, and it's sort of...
It's not a slam dunk.
Yeah, it is not a 100% proof of anything. It's just, this is a way of looking at it.
Right. Once again, it's like the Drake equation. This is a way for us to think about whether or not there's intelligent life in the universe, or how frequent intelligent life
which is fantastic. I think that my issue is that people then put stock in it.
Well, that's the thing, is that we're concrete thinkers, and this is why it's important to be a second commandment atheist, right? It's important not to build up idols, right? So that, it's agnostic atheism for a reason, right? There's a certain amount of, well, this is the best, this is scholarly consensus. This is the consensus at this time, or this is what maybe, when we...
whenever Carrier himself talks about it, he always tries to make a point of he is not 100% one or the other. He tries to emphasize, he's only like 66% mythicist with his generous estimate kind of stuff. He doesn't want to say that he's 100% anything. It's just this put all the evidence together. It leans towards mythicism.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
And that's honest. That's
and then people who reference his work will say, "See, therefore mythicism," without having any of the nuance that he likes to try to emphasize.
Yeah. And this is a problem when people glom on to any idea, really, right? Is that there's a tendency of not getting it right. You got to show your work. I heard Leanne Lord talk about skepticism. She's a comedian. She's been on the channel before. Talk about skepticism, and it's like you have to be able to show your work basically when you're making these kind of assertions. So, like the period, like you were saying, Dr. Tom Fuller, is that he's saying, well, I am X amount % sure of being a mythicist, and that number will change over time, probably as new evidence comes out.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the benefits of the framework that he's trying to emphasize, that you can include extra variables into it and it just naturally expands.
Exactly. So Dragons in Genesis says it's a way to keep historians honest in their statements of likelihood concerning a point. I like that. I like that, Dragons.
I don't know, and I think I just struggle with it's almost like an infinite regress thing. I just think that because you cannot even, in my mind, and maybe you can, and this might be where I'm wrong, but in my mind, you cannot even begin to fathom the variables.
The variables are estimated. But it's a framework.
And my issue is the line between estimation and speculation, or
well, the thing is, if you once again, let's go back to the Drake equation. They're obviously speculative aspects.
Greatly, in my opinion.
Right. It's an interesting framework, and as we know more information, we change the variables, right? I would say that Bayes' theorem in relation to the historicity of Jesus, it's in a different category than, let's say, the Drake equation. We know a lot more about what has happened on this particular planet, let's say, and what was going on in the Roman province of Judea at that time than, let's say, the likelihood of life in the universe. So comparing the two, I think that using Bayes' theorem with the historicity of Jesus is more, I don't want to say truthful, but more possibly to be true, or a better tool to understanding what really went on.
And the other benefit is it's a more systematic approach instead of just no real framework structure of people just asserting stuff otherwise, essentially.
And it's all speculation at that point. But I get it. I like how it is put into a formula, and that way you can, calculate some stuff. My mic is acting weird.
I will tell you this, Sammy, is that when I first heard it, I thought my bullshit meter went off. My bullshit monitor went off in my head because it seemed very trendy. It seemed very gimmicky. And it took me, and I didn't talk about it, to tell you the truth. I just kind of thought, reflected about it. I know, and I saw a couple of videos and read about it too. And that helped me, muddle through it to form an opinion on it.
Yeah, and I think I just need to know a bit more about it.
Depending on how you put your data into it, you can manipulate it easily enough as well. That's also part of the problem.
Gunk out, right? Gunk in, gunk out.
So you have to trust the estimates and data that you put into it for you to get any sort of confidence in what you get out of it.
Right. So a Christian, for example, or an evangelical would look at Bayes' theorem and put in 100%, 100%, 100%, 100%, and come out with, well, of course Jesus is real. It says 100%.
And I guess, see, with the Drake equation, though,
that's the thing that bothers me,
almost, though. Okay, what? Sammy first, and then Tobin.
It's almost a case of, with the Drake equation, that it's stipulated whenever it's brought up. But this is basically speculation because we don't even know all the variables.
Right.
But with Bayes' theorem, it's a bit more accepted.
Yeah.
And for me, the Drake equation leaves me smack bang in the middle, 50-50. It doesn't help me decide whether there is life or isn't life. And I'm kind of the same with the Bayes' theorem.
Sure.
And what I've seen from Richard Carrier, it doesn't push me to 66%.
Well, I can see that. I mean, I can see that. Tobin, what were you going to say?
I was gonna say something about like the. Why does my mic keep jumping up? 100%, going 100%. That's something that bothers me with like that is a red flag to me with people that my mic is acting so weird right now. Being 100%, like that's a red flag to me when people are like, I'm 100% on something. Like it, I like it when people are like, it seems a little more honest whenever you have a lower, confidence. Like,
Right. No, I totally agree. This is interesting. Cryptomaria says, I'm just going to put a synopsis on what Cryptomaria was saying is about the extraterrestrial life. It would be very difficult for us to really conceptualize because it's difficult to really understand what how alien an octopus is, right? It's difficult for us to wrap our minds around a creature that lives on our planet and how different they are in terms of their nervous system and the eye. It's alien to us, but to consider what an extraterrestrial life form too, it just shows you how limited we are because we just think bugs are squids basically.
There's the phrase "life as we know it," which does a lot of work when you're talking about alien life because that greatly limits what you're talking about.
Yeah, it does. It does.
And I found the more I learned about the variety of life on this planet and the forms that it can exist in, and then the forms where we don't even know how to classify it, and the more it seems to, become grayer and grayer, that actually made it easier for me to understand how consciousness evolved, how consciousness emerged, especially fundamentalists, but religious people, creationists especially, struggle with this idea of consciousness emerging slowly. They think it had to just be there one day. One day we were a monkey, according to evolution. The next day we were smart.
If you've seen my video when I talked to Dr. Nathan Lentz, who's a biologist, I forget which university he teaches at, but he wrote a book about our morality, our sense of right and wrong, and how it evolved, how it emerged from our primate cousins, from our ancestors, and how similar it is. It was probably one of the best conversations I've had on the channel.
And I think, well, go on, Grant.
Example of like the alien life, not as we know it, popular fictional narrative from back in the day talked about possibility of hyper-intelligent shades of the color blue, if you're familiar with the reference.
Is that a Douglas Adams?
Yes, that's from Douglas Adams.
All right, dude. That okay. We're gonna have to.
Or small furry creatures from Alpha Centauri.
Oh, Centauri, right. Excellent. All right, I'm gonna have to close the show early today because I gotta be a good friend. One last comment from Dragons. What's fun about the mythical Jesus is that we know Messianic Jews believed in him for centuries before the Gospels were written. It's all about Star Jesus, dude. It's all. I want to light up a spliff and talk about Star Jesus, but it's time to go, right? You guys know what I'm talking about. Dragons and
Man, I would be
Genesis.
honored if you would join me on one of those. That would be awesome.
That would be great. We should do a special show with Dragons and Genesis, and instead of atheists drinking out loud, it would be atheists spliffing. I don't know if that's a verb or not. Talking about Star Jesus. On that note, we're going to do the same fucking crazy thing tomorrow, everyone. Except it's going to be a full show from 10 to 11. And of course, we're doing 9 to 10. Take care. Thanks, panel. This has been really fun. Actually, this has been fun. And Shamalahala, is that the term? Shamalahala?
Shamala Hamala.
Shamala Hamala. All right. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, one of them is the Australian way of saying it. The other is the Bostonian way of saying it.
Right. It's the Boston way. All right. Take care, everyone. Thanks again.
Hey, Rick.